to the Money Mentors Podcast.
This Money Mentors podcast is about helping you with your retirement questions. So if you have a question for us, reach out online anytime at matsonfinancial.com. We do every week talk about the headlines, Laurel, and there's certainly been a big one about retirement lately. In this election year, there's a big issue actually getting a lot of attention, changing Social Security and the retirement age. Now, both President Biden and former President Trump have been weighing in on this issue, but it actually started with the Republican Study Committee floating this idea of raising the Social Security retirement age in its latest budget proposal. Now, put politics aside and try to anyway, but this is something we've actually talked about for a while here on the show, that, you know, if a change is going to happen, it's most likely going to affect that age. Do you think that should happen based on what you know about this program?
Well, you know, it's interesting because something needs to change, right? Especially when it comes to how all of this works and taxation with Medicare, yada, yada, because you put into this system, and yes, you definitely want to see those results and those dollars come back to you, but it's hard to say, all right, you know, my full retirement age is 67. Now that's going to bump to 70, and I don't get that benefit now that I've paid into for all these years. But on the other side of it, I get it from a balancing the budget standpoint. Caveat is, can they actually balance the budget by doing it, right? I'm on board to say these changes need to happen to make sure Social Security can continue, but they need to make sure that it's really going to work, and they're not just saying, yeah, we're going to try this, let's make this switch, and now we're going to try this and do this, because people can't agree. So we'll see what really happens. But I think the most important piece when it comes to this topic, period, is for people to realize Social Security was never designed to be the primary income source, right? When it comes to retirement. It's that supplemental piece that's there. You pay into it. Hopefully you get some out of it, and majority of it out of it, as you do in retirement. But for us, we look at that to say, well, what does that mean if we were to maximize our Social Security? You know, what does that ending benefit look like compared to if I were to take early before my full retirement age? Or there's the third kind of option in there too, is what happens at my full retirement age, meaning that primary insurance amount, you'll see people call it PIA. That's the amount that you're going to receive at your full retirement age. And if you elect to start receiving Social Security benefits prior to that, it's going to be a reduced benefit. And yes, you're going to get some cost of living adjustment bumps along the way, but we don't really know what those are.
Yeah.
And so it could be, you know, something good for you. It could be not enough to really keep up with the cost of living. But that's why we need to make sure that, hey, this onus is on you. You have to make sure that you have the retirement you want. You got to save for it. And then from there, properly plan on what that income flow is going to look like. Because if Social Security does change, that's out of our control. How does it impact the rest of your plan? So we go over all those different scenarios with you. I know we've got some of our clients who take Social Security the first age they can because they've paid into it, and they're like, they change something with it, I want all that I can right now.
Yeah.
And others are like, well, I don't want the extra taxes involved, and it doesn't make sense for their plan, so they might defer it. So that's why we go through all these different situations when it comes to your enhanced retirement plan and go over that Social Security piece with you, because it does obviously change your whole retirement plan.
Real life lessons about your retirement. You're listening to the Money Mentors Podcast.
Now, most of us have watched our basketball brackets bust over the last week and a half here, Laurel.
You are probably feeling a lot of pain.
Oh, a lot. As a Kentucky fan, our listeners know that's it's not good for us. And you lasted a little bit longer. The green and white represented. I appreciate that. But here we are. Neither one of us still in it. So there we go.
Better years to come.
But in fact, after the opening weekend, there were actually no perfect basketball brackets left in any of the major platforms that host these bracket challenges online. And it was interesting to hear Michigan State University math professor Albert Cohen tell Lansing's Fox 47, even if you flipped a coin, this would not be an easy game.
If you were just to flip a coin, a 50-50 coin, then you have roughly 2 to the 63, or 9.2 billion possible brackets.
So a flip of a coin, you choose your teams that way. That's how this would go. Your odds of getting it all right, 1 out of 9.2 billion.
Wow.
To get a perfect bracket. But it reminds me, too, of how we oftentimes try to get it perfect with, say, our investment picks too, Laurel, yet that seems almost impossible as well, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And I think there's so much correlation between investments and how you look at your brackets when it comes this time of year. Because for you and I, we're just talking about Kentucky and Michigan State. It's way too hard for me to not pick Michigan State going pretty far because I have that love for them. You know, I want them to do good. But then the other side of me is like, okay, how do I make the reality part of it? And that's really hard to have a non-emotional perspective when it's my bracket.
Yeah.
And I think about that with investments, right? So if you're the client and maybe you've worked for a corporation for a very long time or even I've seen it with clients that have inherited dollars or inherited stocks from their parents. Dad held on to this stock for so long. It was a different philosophy then. It was a very different market then. And right now you own that stock. You might be in love with it and not want to let go because it feels like your parent is there with it.
Yeah.
But you got to take the emotional side away from it. And that's why you have somebody like us at Mattson Financial, that fiduciary advising team, to help coach you through that. You know, what is the tax implication on that? You don't want to just sell it off, but also what's the strategy? What's the goal here, right? You're in retirement or you're approaching retirement, or depending on what you're trying to do, those investments need to be invested towards that goal. And so we want to make sure we diversify, because now more than ever, the markets are crazy. There's kind of no rhyme or reason. So you want to make sure that you have different types of items in your portfolio, because if one's a loser that year or is having challenges with the markets, you need to make sure something else is still working.
Yeah.
Because we see that with stocks and bonds. You know, we've talked about it a lot, that supposed to happen, they're supposed to have a different relationship. When stocks go up, bonds down, and vice versa. But then we saw that that's not the case anymore. So I say try to take that emotional piece away from it. You have more invested in your retirement than you do these brackets. So leaning into somebody to help you try to remove some of that emotional piece. And obviously, if it is so tied to you and so important to your family and your legacy, we're going to make sure that's a part of your plan too. But that's why we get to know you. What are your dreams, your goals, your desires? Do you have a multi-generational play here? We're going to help you with all that, especially looking at taxes.
Want weekly lessons from your money mentors? Yes. Hit the subscribe button now and listen every weekend on Wood Radio.
The opinions expressed in this program are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or on any specific security. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult your financial advisor prior to investing. Any past performance discussed during this program is no guarantee of future results. Fee-based financial planning and investment services are offered by Mattson Financial Services, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Insurance products and services offered through Lakeview Financial Group, LLC, Mattson Financial Services, LLC, and Lakeview Financial Group are affiliated. To find out if Mattson Financial Services is licensed in your state, please call 800-536-8907.